Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. This is Jasmine with Blakely Skincare. Basically, I am here to teach you everything that I know about skincare in my little experience of selling skincare. I've made a lot of things. I'm just here to really spark creativity. I love skincare, I love textures and all things like that. So I wanted to share my love of that with you. This week we're going to be making my cookies and cream. You can't really see it, but it says cold brew float coffee scrub. So here are some of the footnotes that I normally record for you guys. You can pause to read. Basically breaks down the phases for you and how you incorporate the ingredients. My disclaimer, pause to read just a little bit about what I promise and what I don't. And then of course all the links to everything that you'll need to make this are going to be in the description of this video. So here we're going to start with our phase A. We're going to be melting down our ingredients. That is sow seed butter. It's refined. It's very much like kokum in property, so I really like it. It gives you that nice firm feel. We have our emulsifier here, BTMS 50. It's always just a good stable emulsifier for measure. It holds everything together nicely and it has a bit of a conditioning value to it. So I like it for that reason. And then here we have a little bit of safflower oil. And you can put any carrier oil in this one of your choosing. I like safflower oil because it's affordable, light, non-comedogenic, meaning it won't clog pores. So it's always a safe go-to for me. And you use a little bit just to get the texture that you're looking for here because I want it to be a thicker texture. And then here we're going to add our water phase. Now I'm creating a slurry. This doesn't go in this phase particularly, but I'm just creating it for you guys. So we have a guar gum, which is a thickener and kind of a conditioning agent. And then we have vegetable glycerin. What I like to do is I like to dissolve any sort of gums or thickening agents or gelling agents into vegetable glycerin. It also works with honey or other humectants, but this way it makes it so it doesn't begin to clump up. Guar gum will get extremely clumpy if you just try to mix it directly in water, and it can get kind of just messy to disperse. It doesn't really matter if you're using an immersion blender, but still it kind of does. So I'm just going to give it a good mix it around and set it aside. And then our water phase is going to be our water. So we have distilled water. Please use distilled water only to get the best results. It's the purest. Spring water and purified water aren't as pure. Distilled is the purest. And then here we're going to add one of our foaming agents. It's cocoa betaine. It comes from coconuts, and I love that it gives a good lather, and it's also very gentle on the skin. It's used in a lot of baby washes, and it's water soluble, so it's going to go right in the water, and you're just going to stir it around. I mean, you don't really need to do anything vigorous here. It's going to kind of dissolve and mix in well and make it nice and bubbly. It's going to pair very well with the SLSA. And so we're going to go ahead and mix our phases here. Now that our heat phase is done melting, you're going to scrape everything out into here and get ready to quickly start using your immersion stick blender to begin to blend. So people have asked me if they can use a regular blender, hand mixer. And my answer is that I've seen it on other YouTubers that they've been able to do it and make it work just fine. But in my experience, I think I've made it work before too. But a lot of people have told me though that it doesn't emulsify whenever you use a blender. So you use at your own discretion. At that point, I highly recommend using an immersion stick blender. It just kind of makes everything mixed together very well. So in the beginning, it's very liquidy. As you can see, it's kind of splashing around on me and getting everywhere. And so one thing that I learned is I always remove that whenever I put other stuff in it now, because often that will just knock over, create a huge mess. So here I'm adding in my slurry. Okay, it's technically part of phase C. As you guys can see here, I'm just gonna kind of start adding things in one by one. I recommend you do the same just to make sure that everything is thoroughly mixed in. The slurry will begin to make it chunk up a little bit, but it helps for a nice slip and a nice conditioning agent, since you do have surfactants that are naturally going to be stripping in there, because that's what they're supposed to do. And so you're going to mix it in. It's going to begin to get thicker and thicker, especially because of that sow seed butter. That's the reason why I chose it, is because I've used it with whipped soaps before. And maybe they're not whipped soap and foaming bath butter, whatever you want to call it, right? it really helps to firm up nicely between that and cocoa butter, but southseed is like a little bit drier. And more crumbly. So it does it even better in my opinion. And then for emulsified textures, you get more of that buttery type of texture, that thickness, if you cut down on the oils a lot. So we all know that when you're making an anhydrous butter, you use about double the oil that you use the butters. But in this case, I like to use about a third or half of the oil that I do with the butter, and then just a little bit more water than I have of the entire oils and butter added together in order to make sure it emulsifies, because you have to have more water than oil. But that it's not so much overwhelming it with water that you get this nice buttery type of texture. But see, it gets a little foamy and frothy. And then here we're going to add our other surfactant, which is SLSA powder. Now this helps it to really foam and lather up nicely. It's pretty cheap, so it's easy to get your hands on. Guys, wear an aspirator when you do this, because this just gets everywhere, and when you breathe it in, it's going to burn your lungs. Okay, but you shouldn't really be breathing in surfactants. It's not that it's dangerous or anything like that. It's perfectly safe for the skin. It's just anything. I mean, you wouldn't put soap in your lungs anyway. You wouldn't breathe it in or want to put it in your mouth. So just, I advise wearing an aspirator or a mask, working in an open area. And then I'm just going to mix it in. You're going to see me mixing it a bit only because of the chunks and clumps, but I absolutely love the way that this combination of surfactants tends to bubble and lather and foam. It does it beautifully whenever it's added to water and you're washing your final product, and it also leaves the skin feeling very nice and clean without getting too stripped. So this is one of my personal favorite blends. I recently used it in a shampoo that I created, and I'm so in love. A little bit went a very long way for getting a good cleanse. So as you can see here, I'm just moving forward with the mixing and such, getting everything mixed in. I'm also going to get those chunks on top of the immersion stick blender there. So basically, I wanted to create like a thicker ice cream type of textured product here. That's really what I was going for. I was very happy with the results. It's almost like a bath whip, but it's not quite as firm. This will firm up a little bit as it goes on, and it is scoopable, but it's also still very much so just kind of like this creamy type of texture. So I really fell in love with it here. And then we're going to keep on mixing for just a little bit longer. We're going to get ready to add in some of the other ingredients here. Actually, what I'm doing here, sorry guys if I kind of speak out of term, I'm doing this as a voiceover afterwards. So here we have our sugar. A lot of people ask me what I use for exfoliants. It's just a regular refined sugar. You can feel free to use castor. You'll have to use like double or a lot of castor to get the same scrubby effect, because it's an extremely fine sugar. And if you want to use a more coarse type of sugar, it just may not be, people are sensitive. So the coffee grounds, a special note about the coffee grounds, in order to make it so that the brown didn't bleed into my formula, I filtered them first a lot. Like I made sure I ran water through it to the point where it was like almost clear, because I wanted to make sure that this looked like cookies and cream and it didn't really have that like brown coffeeness to it. And it still smells a lot like coffee, which complemented the fragrances really well. And I'm just mixing them together ahead of time just to spread them evenly. I also made sure to dry them ahead of time as well. So it's a little bit of prepping and planning if you want this cookies and cream type of look. I would say that these look more like cookies and cream if you use these, as opposed to using something like jojoba beads. Jojoba beads, they can give you a cookies and cream look too. I've used them before, but they're more expensive, and then it's not the same to me in my opinion. Coffee looks more like cookies. So here is my blend of fragrance oils that I'm going to show you guys in a little bit. You add that right in there, and it smells just like cookies and cream. I really got this formula down for that. Like, that was amazing. And then Germall Plus is my broad spectrum preservative. This does have water, guys, so you guys are going to want to use a broad spectrum preservative to make sure that you don't add so you don't get mold. I like it because other types of preservatives tend to change the properties of my formula. So that's my personal favorite. And then, so this is what I used for the fragrances. The coffee oil, the CO2 is a coffee extract. And then I did sugar cookie and hot fudge. And I did mostly sugar cookie and then just a little bit of the coffee and the fudge. And the sugar cookie really smells like that nice rich vanilla flavor. So that's why I use that, because it's a type of vanilla that is more very much like a cookie. And these are very good fragrances, by the way. So they're very much realistic. And then the hot fudge, that, you know, hint of chocolate that Oreos and cookies and cream tend to have. And then the coffee was initially like as a like for the cold, for like a coffee type of smell, right? But it actually really just blended and complemented it well. So this very, very much smells like cookies and cream. You're going to want to use mostly the sugar cookie oil, then add in a little bit of the other ones and smell as you go. I give you guys the percentages and you guys can play around with it. But you'll love it. And then so we're going to go ahead and add in our exfoliants, guys, and then we're going to get ready to mix them in. Now, when mixing, you are going to, it gets tricky because you don't want to, the goal isn't to add air into the formula, it's to mix it well. Using the immersion stick blender, it can break or get stuck on you. So you're going to want to use a hand mixer, okay? And don't mind that mica I have on there. I did a bunch of formulas this day and the mica went everywhere. Yeah. So I'm mixing it in. And as you can see, I was like, at this point, still like a little scared that it was going to bleed brown into my formula, but it didn't. So I was pleasantly surprised with the overall out, how everything turned out. And I'm mixing it basically enough to get everything in there nice and smoothly. The goal isn't to whip it and to get in too much air. As you can see, they look like little cookie crumbles in there. It's so realistic. I love that the coffee grounds give it that element, and the exfoliating factor for this is so nice because it has that perfect ratio of sugar to your coffee grounds. I wanted to give you guys a little close-up personal check on this so you guys could see that action there. Just that texture is beautiful. And then, so yeah, you just want to mix it in. And it seems like I'm mixing a lot, but there was a lot of little clumps I had to make sure I got out. And this is the formula. So it will firm up a little bit. You always want to let it firm before you put it in the containers. And I hope you guys liked the video. So I'll see you on the next one. Bye.